this is the last time I'm going to straighten this thing. What's wrong with it anyway?
Oh, I don't know. It's been doing that ever since those heavy trucks started rolling past the house.
Well, is the nail crooked, do you think?
I should say not. I hammered it in there myself.
Oh, and what did you use?
Where's that old flat iron? That old gasoline one?
Then that accounts for my almost tipping over this morning on the landing.
Oh, well, what did you do with it?
I put it on the shelf over there.
Well, that isn't where it belongs. I'll move.
All right, dear, thank you. I'm going upstairs now.
Oh, hello there. You know, according to Esther, keeping things straight around here is a woman's work. But I keep telling her that this collection is my work, and it should be. I've been at it ever since I started to teach in college. And each of these objects you've seen here have a story that is a part of American life, and I'd kind of like to tell you about them and my reasons for collecting them. You see, as I said, each one of these has been a part of America, either of American life or of American art. Now, these two things, American life and American art, are part of each other. They're intermingled. That's my theory. That the art pretty faithfully reflects what's happening in life. And if you'll join me for a while, I'll tell you about it. Now, as a start, I'd like to, that's just what I mean by me taking care of things here. I want things where I can find them. Now, where did that pair of shoes go that I wanted to... Oh, here they are. Whoever wore these must have been in torture most of the time. What with the dirt roads and the cobblestone streets they had to walk on in the early 1900s. Perhaps it is a day for walking from shop to store. Doing the whole week's buying in one day and able to get out of station. Well, basically, I guess the things that women shop for haven't changed too much. And so on to the general store. Not thinking of pausing at the restaurant with its 25-cent ham and eggs and its 5-cent cheese sandwiches. Even though ladies were invited. Why, they were even thinking of inviting ladies to vote. Now, can you imagine how the men must have laughed at that? But she was thinking of her family and what to feed them. Yeah, plenty of canned goods. The long order he's taking there. What do you bet he throws in a 5-cent bag of candy and maybe a piece of liver for the cat? And our shopper can't resist taking home a bag of the old standby dried peach. It was about all the fresh fruit that was available. Transportation just wasn't fast enough to get fresh foods to their destination in time. You see, there were still more horse wagons than trucks on those cobblestone streets. Yes, these shoes were worn by a woman shopping for her home. But many other women those days were changing their shopping habits. They were talking emancipation. The whole country was talking confidence, progress. They wanted to work. They wanted to vote. Above all, they wanted reform. Here, take a look at these gals typing. And the factory girls, emancipated. suffragettes, almost emancipated. And the cannery worker, emancipated. And through it all, chopping her way into the hearts and the barrels of many Americans, Carrie Nation, crusader for prohibition. Yes, women were becoming a part of the booming, roaring industrial age of America in the early 1900s. It's a country of contrast. The America of the industrial tycoons who averaged over the years $10 million a year, no income tax. And the America of the immigrant laborers who averaged about $400 a year, no income tax. What it came down to was just this, that the Carnegies and the Rockefellers were making just about 20,000 times as much a year as the average working man. But everyone, rich or poor, had unbounded faith in America's future. Yes, we had a lot of faith in America then, in our future. We had a lot of visions, too. Down in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, the Wright brothers were tinkering with a new gadget they called the airplane. A parked car didn't need a hitching post to tie up to, but it took a long time and a lot of cars to completely rule out the hitching post era. Cars which are now just museum pieces. The car age was being given a big push by Henry Ford's announcement in 1908 that he was going in for mass production. One model only, the Model T. Yes, by then the auto was fast replacing the horse, as well as bringing country and city folk closer together. And these same country folk were helping to bring old Dobbin's influence to an end. A tractor was a lot faster than a horse. Just imagine what America was like then. Business was pronounced bigness. When huge corporations joined together to wield unheard of power and force out competition, with no apparent end to it at all, as long as the White House policy seemed to be to let big business govern. Well, the little fellow, the small businessman, who just couldn't compete with these corporations and trusts, began to demand that government take a hand in the thing. Along about, it was, yes, 1901, President McKinley was assassinated, and Rough Rider Teddy Roosevelt took over. And under him, slowly, government did begin to take action. I remember my theory about the arts reflecting the time. Well, I have some friends who tell me that what we call the arts, music, drama, journalism, and all that, don't have much to do with our everyday life. But just let's have a look and see. Now, one of the reasons why this whole demand for reform in economic and social evils got such attention was due to the newspaper, something that was both an art and a typical example of this same industrial age. Journalism was sitting up and roaring in this period, changing from a 2 to a 3-man operation to an industrial giant. New York newspaper publishers, Hearst and Pulitzer, were fighting for readers. What did these readers want? Well, along with the Lonely Hearts column, the sensational yellow journalism of the day, they wanted reform. And they got it through newspaper exposés of corruption in big insurance companies and railroads. And writers with their cries for reform and change in industry turned to magazines, too. One of these magazines, articles, I have it right here, later published as a book. It is a history of the Standard Oil Company, written by Ida M. Tarbell. A very innocent-looking woman who you'd never think could set a whole country on its ear like she did in 1902. Why, there was even a Broadway play about her, The Lion and the Mouse. Ran for 2 years. An unheard-of thing in those days. Yes, America was ready for some unsentimental factual reporting of just what was going on in industry. Now, what about the rest of our writers, novelists? The same thing was happening there. Oh, surely, most of American literature was romantic and escape. Harold Bell Wright was writing bestsellers, which was mostly romantic sentimentality. And things like When Knighthood Was in Flower and the works of Sir Walter Scott were very popular. But that was just a part of it. The biggest part, I'll admit, but still just a part. For you also had men like Upton Sinclair, Frank Norris, Hamlin Garland, Theodore Dreiser, men who were ardently protesting about existing conditions. Why, if ever a book woke people up to one part of our life, it was The Jungle. Here, let me show you. Oh, now, where is it just when I want it? Esther! Oh, Esther!
Yes?
Did you take it?
Oh, Howard, did I take what?
My book by Upton Sinclair, The Jungle.
Oh, yes, I have it. What?
Oh, I just wanted it for a moment. What I wanted to tell you was, that book really ripped the lid off of bad conditions among the meat packers. And they did it from the workers' standpoint, which was something new for 1906.
What did you say, dear?
Oh, I just wondered if you were reading it.
Oh, yes, I finished it this morning while you were in class. You know, it's almost an unbelievable book.
Well, it certainly is. It quite revolutionized the meatpacking industry.
Oh, but Howard, I think he exaggerated. Things couldn't have been that bad.
Well, an immigrant worker in Chicago wouldn't have agreed with you on that, Esther. And don't forget that as soon as that book was published, a government inquiry into conditions in the meatpacking industry got underway.
Oh, well, that must be the reason for the government inspecting our meat.
Well, it certainly started it.
Oh, well, they probably would have started it anyway.
Well, of course they would have started it anyway. My point is, though, that Sinclair made it happen sooner.
Honestly, Howard, you and your precious American literature.
Well, there were some exciting writers in those days. And this may surprise you. One of the most exciting was the philosopher, William James.
Oh, now, look here, I may be awfully dense, but what is exciting about a philosopher?
Well, I'll tell you what was exciting about this one. Instead of just prattling about precepts and concepts and things that people don't understand much anyway, he was applying our industrial revolution to philosophy. And he came up with pragmatism.
Pragmatism? What's that?
Well, as far as you're concerned, dear, let's just say it this way, that the principles of a philosophy are only as good as their practical application, no more.
Oh, well, that's good. I like to be practical. That's why I say give me the novel.
Perhaps that's why you like O. Henry and Jack London. He was writing then. Remember Call of the Wild?
Well, I guess I remember the movie better than the book. When was it written?
Oh, about 1903, I think.
Oh, that's the year The Merry Widow came out.
No, I don't believe it came out till about 1907. By the way, what became of that Merry Widow hat that I acquired the other day?
Oh, I cleaned it all up and sewed that funny little bird on under and put it on the shelf under the staircase.
Oh, over there? Now, you know I'm saving that for film.
Oh, now, Howard, don't get upset. Dear, I'll get it for you.
Yeah. That's it.
Oh, you know, there's just something magical about this hat. It just makes me want to dance and dance and dance. I'm dancing with you.
Oh, do you think you still can?
Well, we can try. We're not too good at it.
We're getting a little rusty. Oh, be careful, that's Oh, this must be a magical hat. You know, for a moment there, I thought I really did hear those melodies again. Well, anyway, what a magical era that must have been. great musical comedies and all.
Yes, that was George M. Cohan's day.
Yes, and the start of the Ziegfeld Follies.
And the Floridora Girl.
Yes. Oh, do you remember? Tell me, pretty maiden, are there any more at home like you?
Oh, dear, not in this household there are. And besides, my supper dishes are still in the sink.
Oh. Well, never mind. I don't think you find the Floridora girls doing dishes. I think they were typists in the play. Remember what I was telling you about the emancipation of women? Oh, I have some pictures of them here I'd like to show you. Yes, here they are. Floridora girls. And while we're looking at them, let's look at some others we have here. There's Eva Tangway, the I Don't Care girl. And Lillian Russell. And Marie Dressler was started then. And Enrico Caruso was here from Italy, captivating opera lovers. With David Belasco, probably the top stage director. And Isadora Duncan, breaking all dance traditions with her natural barefoot style. And Ruth St. Denis, with her strong belief in the religious values of the dance, gave her wonderful contributions to modern American dance. Oh, there were so many others, and so many plays. Actually, drama during this period was really more interested in providing entertainment than in reflecting the demand for economic and social changes. But Tin Pan Alley, the popular musical world, was really commenting all the time. And remember, this was an era of immigration. So we had H-A-R-R-I-G-A-N spelled Harrigan. I've quite forgotten the tune. And then there was She's Only a Bird in the Gilded Cage. It was trying to show that love could bridge the gap between wealth and poverty. Only you had quite a gap then. And John Philip Sousa and his band were touring Europe, and European musicians were touring America. Then, of course, there were the ever-present songs of love and romance. Well, I could go on and on forever about the tunes that reflected the times, but I have a choice item to show you, an old movie film. They were showing this in the Nickelodeon theaters way back in about 1904. Have a little trouble with this. Remember those Nickelodeons that were giving the vaudeville of the day such a rough time? You know, at first, there was just separate pictures of action and reporting events. But then, along in 1903, came Edwin S. Porter with the Great Train Robbery. Now, he was the first director to really tell a story with his pictures. But I'll just show you some of it. It's on the projector here with some other film that I have. Well, with that as a very humble start, movies were on their way toward developing into an art. And it wouldn't be long until they began commenting on society. Meanwhile, in New York City, a man was proving that still photography could be an art too, an art that could stand alone and not merely imitate painting. And this man was Alfred Stieglitz. I've got something of his here in my print collection I'd like to show. I'm planning to put these away before Hester gets them all mixed up. Along way back in 1907, he was looking down into the hold of a immigrant ship, and he got this unposed masterpiece, The Steerage. And it was Stieglitz who helped spread modern trends in art through works he displayed in his New York City gallery. Now, these modern trends were influencing some of the young artists of the time. Many of them were newspaper illustrators, men who made a living drawing pictures which made good newspaper copies. Several of them formed in 1908 a group known as the Eight. Their work was simply a revolt against painting pretty pictures only, and a start toward painting American life as they saw it through their jobs of pictorial reporting. They sought out the average man, and they painted what they saw and felt. Oh, it was something new, all right. You can imagine how a public used to pretty flowers felt about hearing the term art applied to a couple of sweating prize fighters in the ring. But George Bellows painted what he saw and soon came to be accepted as a great artist. This is his Stag at Sharkey. George Luce painted the slums with a sensitive realism. His The Stealers is a perfect example. Oh, the children dance and they laugh, but it's the high-strung, fleeting laughter of New York's slum children. And this is Storm Tide by Robert Penrose. Listen to his words. America must build her own art. To do this, the artist, the man of means, and the man in the street must go hand in hand. Now, these men were really in step at the time of change. But even so, it took the American public a little while to get used to them. They'd set the stage for the new theme in American art. The recognition of our own art instead of an imitation of others. Americans were beginning to look to themselves in sculpture, too. There was a turn toward selecting American subjects, and already a beginning of the new direction in sculpture, more direct carving and less fancy ornamentation. Here's some film I took when I was in Chicago recently, which will show you exactly what I mean. Lincoln was regarded as the democratic ideal in sculpture. Many sculptors chose to portray him. August Sangadan statue of him shows a dignified princely statesman made even more noble by his office of president. Laredo Taft was the center of a circle of young Midwestern sculptors. Here is his fountain of the Great Lakes. It shows the pride which Americans took in themselves and their resources. Each figure represents one of the Great Lakes, with Lake Superior proudly flowing over the others and pouring water from her urn into the next, just as the Great Lakes themselves flow into each other. The rest of this film is on some architecture that I took on that Chicago trip. 20th century America had a passion for industry, for progress. It worshipped the machine. So what should follow? Naturally, the skyscraper. Working in Chicago at this time was Louis Sullivan, an architect who had emigrated from Ireland. He came to be known as the father of the skyscrapers. Let's look at one of his buildings. This is the present Carson Peary Scott store, designed to let in light and air, to display goods to an advantage. Aesthetic and rather heavy ornamentation was used in a manner that pointed up its beauty but didn't interfere with the function of the building. It was Sullivan who saw that the steel skeleton was the basis of support and realized that the building should be styled according to its use. In no time at all, other architects were building skyscrapers. The Flatiron Building may look small to us now, but it and the Singer Building were real shockers when they were erected, and soon made New York, rather than Chicago, the capital of skyscrapers. I wonder how many of you realize that Frank Lloyd Wright, a name in architecture that almost everyone recognizes today, spent his days as a student with Louis Sullivan. Now, Wright could never accept Sullivan's skyscrapers, but he got from him his passion for designing buildings according to their use. Wright considered his building as a whole. He blended it into its environment. His Unity Church in Oak Park, Illinois, shocked people when it was built in 1906, but its practical structure makes it still usable today. He harmonized his style, his materials, and his furnishings. He built this house shortly afterwards. Try to imagine how this fit in with the gingerbread architecture of the day. But here, as always, he was adapting the building to its natural setting. Well, that was America. 1908. There was evidence that changes needed to come about. A balancing of the scales was called for. And everywhere there was a demand for these changes as the American social conscience underwent a mass revolt. The distance between wealth and poverty, big business and labor, city and country were among the most significant contrasts of the era. If those high-laced shoes we saw had been able to walk the length of Manhattan in New York City, they would have seen the contrast. Up on Fifth Avenue, they would walk past palatial mansions of the very rich who wanted to live like royalty. And on another side of the city, they would walk past the poor homes of the immigrants and laborers, men who were almost penniless, battling for a chance to make a living, with the immigrant having the added burden of trying to exist in a strange and bewildering land. It's hard for us today to realize that such violent contrasts could have existed in America, but exist they did. And the artists of the times were writing about the contrasts and painting them, composing music about them, but above all, revealing them. Well, thanks so much, people, and do call in again, and we'll discuss America and her arts up to the First World War. Esther! Oh, Esther! It's done it again!
Oh, let's go.